My name is Malik Abbasdab. Welcome to Upfront. President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo presented his annual report to Parliament on presidential office staff. No sooner was this list presented than the usual cacophonous political arguments started. Are these arguments informed or they are accentuated by malice? When we come back from the break, I will introduce to you a guest who will answer all the questions. There can't be a better guest than this one. Keep watching. You're welcome back. You're watching Upfront, and today we are talking the magic 998. This is a figure, a number which has dominated the news discussions over the last week. Why? That is the number of people working at the presidency. Are the discussions over this matter informed? I have with me as my guest a former chief of staff. He is a consultant of international repute in transitional matters. Nana Atudazi, welcome to Upfront.
Thank you very much.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
And you are looking very well.
Well, thanks very much. Working all over West Africa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doing precisely.
Oh, yeah. Gambia, Liberia, Nigeria. It's been interesting. Assisting the transition process, essentially to ensure peace, at the end of stability and peace in the countries, Because the history of transition, as you know, in Africa, it's been dire, it's been terrible. People have been killed and lost their lives and all that.
Wow. Are there any parallels that you can draw between what happens in all of these countries and what happened back home?
Yes. I mean, essentially, I think I'll just immediately say that, of course, I'm out there because I'm from Ghana. Okay. Because I was also involved in, the transition processes out here. It's because Ghana has a very high ranking, on the transition growth and rating. People think that we've done a good job. And the last one in 2017, particularly, passed off and raised our marks so high. That's one between President Mahama to President Nana Akufo-Addo. Of course, we know there are other smaller issues which have cropped up thereafter, but there will always be problems for us to resolve.
But that reputation doesn't stop the acrimonious debates back home when it comes to our own matters relating to the presidency. And I would imagine that you have followed the figure. Is that figure large?
Well, definitely is the highest for now.
Is it?
I mean, if you look at the basic documentation, to show that President Akufo had about 692. Mr. John Mahama, President John Mahama, had about 678. And today we are dealing with 998. So by all intents and purposes, arithmetically, that figure is high.
On the face of it, it may be high. But if you go into the nitty-gritties, have we compared the figures of the civil staff, civil service staff and the public service staff that have been seconded to the presidency, which may have led to the varied numbers?
Yes. I'm saying, there's no doubt about the fact that statistically, this is the highest, even in terms of the civil service and public servant who will be assigned to the presidency. This is the highest, it's now, is it 709?
Say 706.
Is it 6?
Yeah,
okay.
I think 706.
706.
Yeah.
It's definitely high. 706 is definitely higher than the overall figure submitted by Mr. Akufo and Mahama. You see, so that is it. Then, if you go to 998, it means that there's a top-up of something like 289. You see, it's overshot all the levels by about 289. You see, that's a very high figure indeed, because it has cost implications, you understand, for every single staffer you have to find out what the salary, emolument, benefits, and all that, times 289. That is how serious the matter is. But, of course, it rolls on to the next question. So, is it high? Is it low? I mean, by what do you compare it? If it's, some say, Professor Ade, I heard him say that, well, the figure is not the issue of the figures. You know, it's a question of output, what they do, they're fine at the same time.
Do you share that view?
I think it's Professor Ade, he's a former game power boss here. I must have read somewhere there. You know, I don't have any objection to all those arguments, but I'm saying that about who determines the output, who determines the worth. In this country, we have a forum for determining these issues. You see, that forum that we have all agreed constitutionally is Parliament. And I think that's why, for me, like we were saying, there's been so much agitation and all that. I don't know whether it's we are jumping the gun, but where the dispute or the dispute should be resolved should be at Parliament. The President laid the list before Parliament. He's put the list before Parliament. Constitutionally, once the President puts a document before Parliament, it is served on all the MPs. Now, any MP who thinks that there's something odd or strange or wants some further clarification is entitled to raise it on the floor or wherever, you can say, within the parliamentary process.
But to what ends?
No, when it calls for it, then you'll be asking, say, the 289, who are they? What are their functions? What is their remuneration? You understand? Are they critical or necessary at all? Do we need them at all? Are they taking the oaths? You see, when you talk about presidential staffers, they immediately become public officers who come under Chapter 24 of the Constitution. And they are subject to certain regime, you know, like they must take the oath of office, they must declare their assets and whatnot. So defining who a presidential staffer is very important, not only for just for the name, but so what the person will get, how he will be disciplined, you know, and, you know, even retirement benefits.
It's not all of the 200 plus who are presidential staffers. If you go through the list, you would find that only 27 have been listed as presidential staffers.
And the others?
The rest of them are junior political appointees. And if you took President Mahama's list as well, you would find junior political appointees.
Yes. What the thing I hope we will not get ourselves into is the equivalencies. I think that what we need to do is to do a critical study of the document itself, the law. Act 463, you know.
The Presidential Office Act.
That the Presidential Office Act constitutes the office. That office, it's a supportive organ, you know, an office that supports the operations of the president and the vice president. That's the presidency. Okay? Now, who constitutes that? The office is constituted by two principal categories of persons. One, presidential staffers, people who have been appointed as such. Okay? President who will be appointed by the president. The second, essentially, will be those who have been seconded
to the presidency.
To the presidency. Do you see?
These are public and civil service.
Yes, public and civil service. So we are talking about two categories. You know, essentially, one, those who are called the staffers, presidential staffers, appointed as such. They've taken the oath, and all the other questions follow. The second category will be those who have been seconded to that office. Now, in addition to that, the president is entitled to draw on consultants and experts. You understand?
Such as yourself.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, if I'm called upon. But the exciting thing is that there's nothing like a permanent consultant. You understand? So the law specifically says that these, what do you call it?
And this is in Section 3.
Yeah. Section 3A, 31A talks about persons who are appointed as presidential staffers. Okay? Then 3.1b talks about public officers seconded or transferred to the office. Now, in section 7, you will find that it talks about consultants and experts. You see, consultants and experts says the president may appoint for specified periods a consultant or an expert who the president requires for a specific assignment. You understand? So I want us to get the picture right. There are two categories. You are either a staffer or you are a public officer.
Seconded or transferred. Now you have to hold that breath. We have to take a short break. When we come back, Nana will be delving into the law. What is the position of the law as far as this matter of presidential staffers and public and civil servants who are attached to the presidency are concerned? You're watching Upfront. We will be back. You're welcome back. You're watching Upfront, and we are discussing the magic number 998. My guest is a former chief of staff, an international consultant on transitional matters. Nana Tudazi is my guest, and we are breaking down the numbers and looking at the law. So, Nana, if you read section 3 of the Act, it gives us the categories of people.
Absolutely.
2 categories of people.
Absolutely. You see, section 3 is very straightforward. It gives us only 2 categories of persons who can belong to, look at that. It says members of the office. It didn't say members of the presidential staff.
Members of the office.
Of the office. The office, who are entitled to be there. It says, A, persons appointed as presidential staff under the Act, one of whom shall be the head of the office. And B, any other public officer seconded or transferred to the office. So, in analyzing it, we're talking about persons who have been appointed. They are presidential staffers. The others, they are civil servants. You see, what we don't understand, or what we're not looking at, is that we have what we call the establishment. For the office of the president, it's an establishment by itself. We have officials paid by state to support it. Now, that office of the president comes in, I think, 3 or 4 area cost centers.
Okay.
You know, one, you appoint a president, you must have an office. So he has an office that he runs, you know, operates from. If you have a president, you must put him in a house or a residence. So we have an official residence in which, you know, he operates. If you give him an official residence, you must provide butlers, like what they say, the funny one that came up. Lady in waiting, and people didn't understand. It's a normal, you know, operation. A cotelia, what in local parlance say abawa, you know, it's glorified abawa. Somebody who is behind to support you.
So that's
the
lady in waiting.
Lady in waiting.
And it's normal.
Yeah, it's very, very normal.
Every president has had one.
Oh, that's not good. So every president, every soldier has a Batman. Every senior officer has a Batman. You understand? Somebody who attends a holding, that kind of thing. So these are establishments, but they belong to the bureaucracy. You understand? Then the third category is that the president must have access to outsiders beyond his office. You see, who are those outsiders? People who want to call on him, foreign guests and all that. They operate under the, what do you call it? The Office of the Director State Protocol. Okay. He looks at the president's diary and the external relations. But for the household, that the residence, we have what we term the household of the president. I don't know about now, but in the past, I know the white people who were there. We had what you call the controller of household. He's an officer himself, because he must run the president's house, you know, his household properly.
And this is not the president's wife and maids.
Children, yeah, and all that. Not only that. I mean, the president may invite people to his home, you know. He's representing Ghana, so the standards must be high. You know, cars for the president's household and all that. These are the, so if you look at it, I'm saying that there's an office where he operates from Delhi. The head of that office, coordinating officer, there is a chief of staff. Then we have his residence. the head of that is the controller of household. Okay. Then we have Office of the Director of State Protocol, who oversees, external contacts for people outside the office. So, of course, there are national security and other things. But I'm saying that essentially, it is to coordinate the operations of these three or so category of persons who serve the president and the vice president to ensure an effective implementation of the objectives of the president, that the state has incurred costs to put people in place. You understand? To support the president or the presidency.
Is it then fair to lump up these civil and public servants who, whether the president is there or not, they are there, they have been employed by the state and it's paid by the state? Is it fair to lump up those numbers with the junior political appointees and the staffers and then come to a conclusion of the figure of the number of staff at the presidency?
That is where the problem is in this case. You understand? I've told you that in these three or so cost centers, which all come together, they are necessary. I've told you. The president and the vice president sit on top of all that. You understand? But the law says that once a year, after 3 months, within 3 months after the financial year is closed, you must submit a list to Parliament setting out Section 11 annual report, setting out the number of presidential staff employed at the office, okay? 2, the ranks and grades of the staff, and C, employees in other public services assigned to the office. Yeah. You understand? So still, the law is keeping to the two-tier relationship. Staffers, those appointed by the president as staffers, and those who've been brought in as part of the bureaucracy to support. You understand? So when you are submitting a report to Parliament, they are expecting you to be going this way.
Why is this even necessary?
Just put out all the names of people who are staffers. And then put out all the names of all those who are civil servants or public officers there. That's all. You see, unfortunately, in this particular case, if you look at what the list that was sent, I think that's where the challenge is. The 289, is it the top up?
Yes, so the junior political appointees and the presidential staffers.
So junior political appointees and the staffers. Meanwhile, earlier on, we have talked about staffers being how many? 27?
27, yes.
I mean, we can't, it's a duplication. It creates a problem. So what we need to do, Parliament will have to do, is to look at the 289 described as junior political appointees.
They're actually 256.
Yes, okay, 256.
Because remember that there are 9 other ministers there.
Okay, no problem. No, yes. I just want, it's a 256. So the 256 will have to be examined to find out, or first of all, the classification should be properly done. That's all. There's nothing like junior workers or whatnot. You must have staffers or public officers or civil servants. That's it. So when you describe them as junior and staffers, it becomes a problem. If they are staffers, then you must move them to the list of staffers. You see, if the 256 actually turn out to be staffers, then the staffers situation will be way into almost 300.
Maybe but the president doesn't want to elevate all of these people to the status of staffers, and you laid out the law and the requirements of the law if they are staffers, the fact that they have to take oaths, there are oaths of maybe oaths of secrecy, declare assets and all of that. Maybe the president, in his wisdom, does not want to elevate them to that level, but these are people who are key to the functioning of the presidency. Therefore, bring them at a lower tier.
No, don't get scared. Don't get scared. It's still there. You see, there are quite a number of things, other things we haven't talked about. I mean, we are just discussing the scheme of things. Okay. You see, a staffer doesn't mean that he is a minister. Indeed, the emoluments of staffers, once you put up a staffer, the emoluments, as the law says, will be on the basis of Article 71,
yes,
you know, category. That's a very high category.
For the executive.
Very, 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 very high. And it's a specified, a certain number of, a certain group, category of persons who belong to that. If the president wants to, or if any president wants to lift, you know, somebody lower than that to that level, well, you have to justify it. You also look at the issue of constitutionality of that. You see, there's an issue about constitutionality of what you are saying, the 256. I say that the law itself says there are two categories. Either the person is a staffer or is a, what do you call it?
A public or civil
officer,
servant attached or
know,
on secondment.
So it's a very interesting phenomenon. Now, I can understand it. I'm saying that if you have somebody whose position is lower than a minister, what do you do with him? Normally, what we do is we appoint the person a staffer. All right. But normally, once the person is appointed a staffer, you determine the range at which he enters, whether at the cabinet minister level, whether minister level, regional minister level, district chief executive level. You see, we do what we call equivalences. So your appointment letter as a staffer will say that, yes, you've been appointed as a chief bodyguard or whatever it is, you know, or supplement, but your what do you call it, salary will be, or your emolument will be equivalent to that
at
of
a certain level.
Yes. You see, but you can't have, I'm saying that the challenge there is this description of junior civil servant.
Is there no wisdom in the fact that both President Nana Akufo-Addo and President John Mahama made appointments that were classified as junior political appointees? I'm
saying that I wouldn't answer that. I'll tell you. I think that we should, it is where we go wrong in our politics. You understand? Because we try to do...
it's not equalization.
No, I'm kind of equalizing. I said that let us do a clinical study of the law. It could be possible. And I believe that it is very possible that we've been doing the wrong thing for the last 25 years of a democratic process. So does that mean we continue? You get me? It's because we haven't had time to look at the law properly. I've been a chief of staff, you know. I probably might have been caught up in this kind of situation. But I'm saying on reflection, I realize that we need to do something more. We need to clean up our act. What has happened today should give Parliament an opportunity, or Ghana opportunity, to review. That's one of the biggest things we can do, to review our, you know, presidential office staff procedures. In fact, the law by itself, I think Section 13 or so, gives the regulations. The president may, by a constitutional instrument, make regulations that are necessary for the effective implementation of this act. This is one of the 1993, you know, laws which were quickly passed to support our democratic process.
So you think there's need for regulations on this law?
Absolutely. There's a need for a review of the act itself. One.
To include what?
To include one, limits. You get me? I think that we must have.
There must be a limit to the number of appointees.
No, we must find a way of looking at capping, you know, the numbers. You see,
is that not constricting a president? We have an executive presidency. Why do you want to limit the number of people the president can appoint to work with?
No. But having an executive president does not mean that you can gobble up the whole, what do you call it, the economy. We have constraints. What I'm saying is that I'm not saying that we should limit. I think that there is a forum for arguing this issue out. That is Parliament. It's a deliberative forum. So we should allow Parliament to look at this. Even the issue of capping, whether we want to cap or not. I really don't, you know, go fully out to cap or don't cap. You understand? But I really think that it is important that we take opportunity to study what we've been doing so far. You understand? Because I'm saying that if the president, for instance, or I hate to talk about the president, a president, any president, decides to appoint some other category outside category A and B, that is
as detailed in the law.
Yes, as stated in the law. would a person, that president be acting lawfully? Will he be acting constitutionally? You know what I mean? These are legitimate things which I don't need to be partisan to ask that question. You see, a president is created to take us, to lead us in the law.
Was your government, the government in which you served as chief of staff,
yeah,
were you criticized for the number of presidential office staffers?
Oh yes, of course. I mean, this, you see, that is why it's interesting. This issue of presidential staffers has been flogged over and over again. People have shown concern. You know, the CSOs have all shown concern, you know, public, because it has everything to do with the size of the budget of that office. You understand? And you are talking about taxes of people going into that. You understand? So, I remember at least in 2004, is it, no, what? 2001, for instance, Mr. Martin Amidu went to court against President Kufuor.
Because some people were appointed.
Yeah,
yes.
for appointing three, what do you call it? I think Jake Elizabeth Onyene, and Mr. Amidu, the National Security Coordinator.
Yes.
That they didn't go through the Council of State. You say. Then there were cases like in 2014 where I think the Okaikwe MPP, minister, MP, you know, forgot his name. He raised it very high, almost got into court. You know, say about the challenge. The challenge has been on, and it's legitimate.
I'm told that in 2003,
yes,
when former President Kufuor submitted his list, this was the same level of arguments that were had.
Yes.
2014. So in 2003. It was the NDC criticizing the Kufuor government.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that.
No,
Let me tell you something.
The point I am making, Nana, is that in 2014, when President Mahama submitted his list, it was the MPP that were criticizing. Then 2018, Nana, President Akufo-Addo submits, then the NDC is criticizing.
No, I'm not too sure that that point is legitimate to say that it is either MPP that is criticizing or NDC that is criticizing.
No, but the history and the records show, even in Parliament.
It would be grossly unfair to so many well-meaning Ghanaians who are neither NPP or NDC, who are saying that government is large. We must look at it.
That's true.
Look, let me tell you something. In the US, what you are saying, in the US, for instance, one of the biggest points in campaigning is about the size of, you know, Washington. What do you say? Of the, you know,
yes,
government.
when they say Washington, yes.
Yeah, understand? And everybody, in fact, so many people become presidents on account of the fact that I'm going to whittle down the numbers at Washington. They get elected, but they get caught up in
Except that in our case, it doesn't look like it's happening because in 1990, from 1993 up until 2000, your government was criticized, the Kufuor government was criticized, Mahama was criticized, Nana Addo is being criticized. So it means the people who criticize when they are in opposition, when they come into government, they appoint numbers that are criticized.
No, sir. I'm saying that position is absolutely wrong. And it's unfair to the people. I'm saying, listen, please open your mind. I'm saying that there are people, you are not being fair to the CDD. CDD,
I've read the CDD statement.
Okay, let's come on board. And I remember, CDD, are they NDC? This is not fair to them. They are saying that the numbers are, you see, I don't want to be caught in the position where I appear to be defending.
No, the point I am making by citing these criticisms is to make the point that it would seem that the politicians, when they are in government, they make the appointments. When they are in opposition, they criticize it.
No, you're overstretching it. I mean, yes, sir.
Because four presidents have been criticized, including yours.
Yes, I'm saying that the next government will be criticized, no matter what it is, because there's a public interest at stake. You understand? There's a public interest. There's the volume, the cost of, you know, what do you call it, running government. Get me? So I thought that my invitation here was so that we look at the challenges that we have and the way forward. I'm not really interested in whether it's NDC or NPP affair.
No, actually, that's not the point I was making. I was just trying to establish the fact that it seems this has been politicized over the years.
I'm saying that it's a wrong perception. If anybody says that, whether it's Bahama government, or for that matter, Rawlings government, or for that matter, Mr. Kufuor's government, or for that matter, Nana Ado's government is unduly large, and the person is a taxpayer, he's entitled to make that point.
Absolutely.
He doesn't need to be NDC. He doesn't need to be MPP. How about that? So I'm just saying that we should not be deflected from the core issue before us. The core issue is about how we operate this act. What has generated the dispute with everybody, CDD, World North, the non-NDC elements are even talking about. You know, it's about numbers. Now, my position is very clear. I said that from the arithmetic that we did, it looks like there's an over a top-up of 256. I'm saying that the president may be entitled to that figure, but you have to explain to the people in Parliament, okay, who they are, what way they do, okay, how much they earning, and what not. You know why this is necessary? If they go to Parliament and then you are looking at it, the president in his wisdom, or a president in his wisdom, would have made some proposals. Now, when Parliament looks at the list, it might decide that, oh, special assistant to, say, the highway, you know, it's roads and minister for roads and highways. I'm just quoting one. Why should he be a special assistant, a staffer? You understand? They should be on the budget of the sector budget. You understand? So, raising people to the level of presidential staffers, as I say, has cost implications which are very substantial.
You think those persons, if they are cited as presidential staffers or junior political officers, they will earn more than, and that will impose a heavier financial burden on the state than if they were just on the budget of the ministry?
Well, in part, yes. But in part, you see, you have to know what happens. That these persons who come under Article 71 are persons who have so much more. You know, if you put him in the category, the lowest category, even in that, maybe as a district chief executive level, he gets all the perks of a district chief executive. May end up having to have end of service benefits and all that. If he were on the standard, you know, sector list, you know, he may not gain that. You get his pay and all that. You see, but you will have to understand that many people have said, legitimately, not political issue, that there's also the need to rationalize, you know, the operations of the presidency, not necessarily President Nana, the presidency. There are so many organizations which end up there who probably do not need to be there. In the 1960s, when we did the VRA, you know, it was necessary for President Nkrumah to oversee the operations. So even the budget, signing the, what they call the checks on it, had to be done by the president. You understand? 20 years later, we realize that, wow, you have a Ministry of Energy and whatnot. So you move that to that. You know, Operation Right-Hand Drive. You know, ever heard of Operation Right-Hand Drive? The Achampon regime. At the point that the presidency took over to ensure, you know, delivery of it. And we found that it was still on an agency of the running to the presidency. Why? Scholarship Secretariat. It's still, you know, reporting to the presidency. Why? There's a ministry for, what do you call it? So there's a higher education. So there's a point for rationalizing.
You think there's a huge concentration of responsibilities at the presidency?
Yes. And a lot of time, look, I've been a chief of staff before. I say a lot of time we don't have either the capacity, right, the time, even just the energy to oversee those things. At the sectoral level, the smaller point, you can't do it. Get me? It also creates duplication. You know, there are situations where you have small attorney generals or whatnot in the almost like the castle, you know, in the office of the president. You know, they duplicate the work of the attorney general. You go and ask me, so whether someone with someone. These are the challenges that we had.
So why have we not done this decentralization, for lack of a better expression, all this while? Declassification.
Yes.
Why have we not done it?
No, it's been done. It's been done. It's a review. I'm saying these are processes which take time. Okay, and it's not a one-time affair too. There are some operations which go on at the presidency, for instance, which with time you find out that you don't need that level of agency or authority to, you know. For instance, if President Nana decides that the school feeding project is such a terribly important thing, he may decide, I don't know, that it should come under, you must have a desk at the presidency. Now, if over years we get over that problem, you understand, what we need to do is to move it from the presidency to the sector. You understand? I'll tell you something. You're talking about Nigeria. I was there, we're dealing with these transitional issues. One of the things about it was to set up an Administrator General's office. Mm-hmm. They said they all agree. Yeah, like we have in Ghana. They said, oh, that's fine. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. We believe in it. At least we can push the presidents to accountability and all that, and all that. But you see, what you don't understand that in our country, Nigeria here, you set up, you say a small bureaucracy. Before you realize, it's a whole thing.
We'll blow it up.
We were arguing it out in a long time. You see, it's still unresolved as to whether to have it. So there must be a continuous process of review of the operations of the president at the presidency. And I don't think that anybody intends ill to say that. Get me? Of course, some people will be affected in the process, and they may want to protect them.
What is the consideration when we are making all of these appointments at the presidency?
Well, I hope you don't put me on the edge, but obviously, any president who goes to war, to battle, comes with his men, you understand, or women. Get me? In the US, for instance, it's very clear that I don't know, 30,000 or so. A new president comes in, there are openings, about 30,000 openings. I may be wrong. Which you are giving, that these offices you must fill with your people. You have to. You understand? And that is what I'm calling for. We must know which offices are available which any president can fill. If you don't have that categorization, we stand the danger of every president or any president coming, put under pressure to dump as many of the persons as possible. We're going to make progress in our democratic run. We have to make progress, and I think we are.
If you read Section 5 of the Act,
yes,
and you listen to criticisms that over the years, when the presidents come, they virtually sack everybody who was there. There are those who say, look at Section 5, and Section 5 simply says that a person appointed a presidential staffer under Section 4(1) of this Act shall hold office at the pleasure of the president and shall cease to hold office on his removal or resignation from office or on occasion of the tenure of the office of the president. So that's if the cessation of the tenure of the office of the president. So if the president's office ceases, you go. Is there justification for the criticisms that have been leveled over the previous, over presidents, that they come and they sack everybody from the office of the president and then populate it with their own people?
Yes, that fills the point I'm making. That we, first of all, we must know the openings that's there. I've heard of late a very, what I thought, rather bizarre argument that some governments inherit people. I've heard that. I can't imagine.
They have been talking about the 706 public and civil service staff.
No, but that is rather demeaning to public officers. You see, when public officers have been assigned to an office, and then they are working, these are respectable persons up to the level of chief director. You understand? You only that for this time move to the head of state's office to work. You cannot, if you the political appointee, you leave and then stay back. You cannot say that the new person who comes is inheriting them. I think it's short of insulting.
And this is the category.
It's all right. No, I think that it's all right to them. I feel strongly for civil servants I've worked with. These are genuine, but it is a reflection of a certain type of battle that goes on between political appointees and civil servants. Really? Oh yeah,
How?
that one over the years. Well, we are political appointees. We think we have an edge over ordinary civil servants. That I'm telling you, this is one. It's a legitimate.
How do you resolve that?
Oh, by mutual respect, for people to understand that people sign on to the civil service to do an honorable job. They sign on to the civil service to serve their country. They sign on to civil service, to serve a government. That the government comes in, has a tenure. At a certain point in time, the tenure lapses or runs out by fruition of time. If 8 years you get me. Another one comes. They are obliged to serve them the same allegiance. You understand? So it would be unfair to say that because they work with a previous government, they are men. No.
Let's look at the category of people.
I don't think it's fair to them. I think somebody's got to apologize to civil servants in the country. At times I find...
For the use of the word inherited.
Yes, but haven't I explained to you sufficiently? I'm saying that we will have to go about our democratic process in a way that will accommodate everybody.
But the use of the word inherited isn't offensive, is it? Because if you say you just
saying that they are... Listen, it cannot be inherited. The legal thing says very clearly. The document says the members of the office are A, persons appointed as presidential staff under this act, B, any other public officer seconded. So now it just happens that the category A, they have a time tenure. You see, within 4 years or 8 years, either you resign, you are removed, or the president's tenure runs out. You are out.
According to Section 5.
Yeah. If you leave, it doesn't mean that the other person must leave or necessarily. It's a B, category B. And that's what I'm saying. We must.
Let's look. If you look at the letter sent to Parliament, the annual report to Parliament on the presidential office staff. This is for January to December 2017.
Yes.
The public sector, the civil servants and the public sector employees, according to that letter, included organizations assigned to the office of the president.
Yes.
And these are civil servants of various classes. They are administrators, they are executive or clerical people. They are from records, secretariat, budget, supply, material management, then presidential household, Department of Parks and Gardens, Ghana Health Service, accounting and data processing. So all of these are civil and public servants.
Yes.
And they are there whether a particular president is there or not.
Absolutely.
And you say, to the extent that they are civil servants, you can't say they've been inherited. But that's what has happened.
I don't know why you want to press this point about inheritance. It's unacceptable. Inheritance. You are not inheriting. You are coming in. At best, they will be inheriting you. You can't say they're inheriting. No. How can you say this? You say, how can you say you're inheriting? You come to inherit. They are there. I'm saying that is you see, it is actually one of the challenges of a transition. When you come, okay, let's move one step. When you become a chief, and you become a chief in the traditional way, you understand, you know what is it? You go, they say, this is a cloth, this is this is that. You use it. It doesn't mean you inherit it. You don't take it. They are the courtiers, the people in the palace, who assist you. You understand? So to that extent, I'm saying that to that extent, you can't say they are there for you to use them. They are there for them to assist you. You understand? So you can't say you are inheriting. No. But I think that we shouldn't be bogged down on that. Belabor that point. I'm making certain points that I think one, as I said, it is essential that this debate, the real proper debate, should be channeled. Probably government should channel it to make sure that it has, of course, send the thing to Parliament. Get me? We could have deflected the debate coming and say, okay, let Parliament do the review. Okay? That's one. I also think that the Auditor General is obliged under the law to undertake an annual, audit of accounts which would have been submitted. I think the Auditor General has an obligation to the people of this country to also do this, statutory obligation that casts on it. Get me? We also have a situation where the general public, when they are making these complaints, I think it's legitimate. It is in their interest that they also show greater interest in how our marriage are.
Now, what can the governments do, given, and I know you don't like my reference to the...
Then avoid it.
The repeated complaints over the period. So, over 4 presidents have been criticized, or 4 governments have been criticized for this. What can we do? What should the governments do so that the next president's list will not be criticized?
No, I think that question is wrong. Your question is absolutely wrong.
Why?
Or wrongly posed.
Why?
It shouldn't be a question of what should the government, that the present government, do to do.
No, I'm saying what should governments do?
No, let's
so that we won't have.
What should the state of Ghana do? What should we all do? You see,
the state is represented by the government. It's the government that takes the decisions.
No, I have a problem with your interpretation of this. Look, the president is a head of state. That's all of us. He also wears another cap. He's a head of government. That is the one that, his party, whatnot party in government, okay? Then he's commander-in-chief. He plays those 3 roles at the same time, but, he knows how to operate them. So there's a time when the president will behave like a head of state, where he encompasses all the parties, whatnot, and all that. And government itself will be subordinated to the state. You understand? That is it. Then there are times where he stands on the platform. He's talking as a head of government. You understand? We have one term, ugly noises. He's entitled to all the ugly noises. You understand? So I think that it is important for us to indicate, get me, that as a state, we should be interested in developing institutions, developing institutions which will ensure that the challenges faced by the last 4 presidents will not be faced by the next.
How do we do that?
Exactly. Now you are asking a question. How do we all? I'm saying that, that's what I'm telling you, that first of all, we must get Parliament to, get up to undertake its greater responsibility, the oversight responsibility. It's Parliament has an oversight responsibility in this matter, examining the operations of the, or the office as submitted to them, find out whether they are complying with the law and all that. That's the Parliament has that. That is why the report is put before them. It's not for fun. It's put it there, and then they can decide to discuss it. And I'm saying that Parliament must take a more serious, look at those documents. Secondly, I've told you that the law itself also provides a mechanism for accounting for monies, personnel, and whatnot who work in the presidency. And that is why it says, article, section 12. It says the president shall keep or cause to be kept books of account and proper records in relation to them, which shall be audited annually. I said that the Auditor General has an obligation to look at that. You understand?
And talking about auditing and keeping of accounts, We know from experience
Yes.
that if you take the Auditor General's report over the years, the presidency almost always outspends what has been budgeted and allocated to it.
Yes.
How much of that is a problem?
Oh, it's of course. I mean that it's a real problem. I've been reading some figures thrown about 3 billion and whatnot. I mean, there are other sectors of the economy which we probably can do with some of the monies we spend. You get me? So I really think that whether the presidency is a top or not, we still will need to harmonize, expenditure in such a way that no particular sector or area suffers unduly, because one side is probably dripping so much. But I'm saying this only for purposes of indicating that you ask me what's the way forward. Probably if the Auditor General goes in, looks at it, we will be in a better position for the future to argue out the issue. 256, do you say 256? 265, eh?
Yeah, the 256.
256.
The junior political appointees.
Yeah, that is the area which we need to be particularly audited. You get me? Who are they? What are they doing? Who is going to pay them? And all that. I'm saying that if satisfactory reasons are given by the presidency, they will be entitled to them. They'll be entitled to keep them.
What will you describe as a satisfactory reason?
Oh, if the president comes out and says that I need this office or this category of persons because of reason A, B, C, D, you understand? It's of urgent whatnot to me, fine. You see, but in the debate, we shouldn't give omissions to the president or the presidency. That's also not right.
It has been argued
yes.
that the president put before the Ghanaian people in the 2016 election an ambitious manifesto.
Yes.
And the Ghanaian people voted for it.
Yes.
So he needs these numbers, and he himself, in justifying the 110 ministers that he appointed, the largest ever, he himself argued that he needed those people to prosecute his ambitious agenda. In this case also, it's being argued that these numbers are required to prosecute that agenda of transforming Ghana. Do you find that a satisfactory?
No, I wouldn't rule that. I wouldn't rule on that. I've told you that the proper group of persons to do that, I've said it's Parliament. You see, they should go and, instead of arguing this matter in public, let's go to Parliament and then argue. That's the problem I have with all the brouhaha, all over, that we are raising this so high on all sides. You see, it's becoming a polarized issue, the usual NDC, APP kind of situation. But we should bring it back to Parliament. Parliament must convene, or Parliament, when it convenes, must look at issues. Because this is a topical issue. They must look at it. Be justified. If they can justify the additional 256, or, now people are even talking about 1,600 and
yes,
something.
Ablakwa Okudzeto argues that
I don't know. It may be right, it may be wrong, but I'm saying that whatever figure that should be, you justify it. You get me? It's not something gratis, which, say, with all due respect, the president gives out. You understand? Yeah.
Nana Tudazi, it's been an honor hosting you on Upfront. My name is Malik Abbas. That's all time will allow us. And we have been discussing the numbers, the president's staff and his junior appointees, plus 706 public and civil servants. This has been Upfront. My name is Malik Abbas Dabu. And Nana Tudazi, by the way, is an international consultant on transitions. He is the executive coordinator of the Center for Democratic Transitions, Ghana. He's been my guest. Until we come your way again, be safe. Bye-bye.